Hey there. Hey, everybody. Pahud is here, the man, the myth, the legend. Uh, so, first of all, welcome to the show. Good to see everybody here today. So today we actually have a really, I would say, it's kind of a foundational topic. You know, something that when you do this on your own, when you're, building in AWS, you're deploying across various accounts, especially at scale. When you do this on your own, this is pretty challenging. So today we have Pahud here, who is going to talk us through cross-account deployments with the CDK. And as you can see in the title, we mentioned the term simplifying cross-account deployments. And I would argue that the CDK probably simplifies a lot of this very kind of challenging aspect of deploying in AWS. So first of all, Pahud, if you want to just say hello. I know, first of all, Pahud is really amazing in the CDK community. If you've seen any issue in the GitHub repo or any pull request, there's a good chance Pahud has commented on it or given some advice or feedback. So he's really big in the community. But if you don't know him, Pahud, why don't you say hello, do a quick introduction, and then let's get right into the good stuff.
Hi, hello. My name is Pahud Xie, and I'm based in New York City, and I'm on CDK team. I look at all the CDK issues from the community on GitHub. So if you have ever created any CDK issue, you probably have seen my name doing the issue triage or giving some general guidance like that. So I'm very happy to join the CDK Live with Adam today. We are gonna to share something very interesting for the show.
Definitely, and you can see below Pahud's name is his Twitter handle or X Twitter. Follow him there. I will tell you, Pahud always shares some just really meaningful, code snippets, kind of edge cases, or just common scenarios that users run into with the CDK. And Pahud always has a really good workaround or just a good solution that he shares. So follow him on Twitter to get all the latest and greatest. Okay. So all that said, we're talking cross-account deployments. Why don't we start, Pahud? Let's just talk about, it's if for folks that are familiar with AWS, you probably hear this a lot, or you just know that it's a good practice to isolate your workloads, have that account boundary. But for those that are maybe new to AWS or aren't super deep, let's talk about why do we even talk about cross-account deployments? What's the purpose? What's the reason? Why do we look at doing this, Pahud?
Yeah. So we have seen a lot of customers, especially coming from startup customers, they are working with single AWS account for daily development and even deployment manually, which is obviously not recommended because we generally encourage customers go for multiple AWS account. One reason is that for security concern, for the security boundary, and to minimize the surface security, the exposure, risk exposure, right? And also for isolation. For example, if I'm working in the DevOps team, designing the CI/CD pipeline, then the IAM identity, the IAM principles or IAM roles I'm using should be scoped down to exactly what I really need. I don't need to administer access to the production account, definitely, right? So it is always a good practice to to minimize your required permissions by scoping down and with different AWS accounts. And in general practice, we've seen customers group multiple AWS account in an AWS organization to have the very great cost-saving benefits from AWS, and also very great management like SCP or some policies, guardrails for different unit or group. So that is the reason we have seen more and more customers, especially enterprise customers, they really need for day one, they just need to create multiple AWS accounts for multiple purpose. And sometimes they would like to use, for example, AWS Control Tower to bootstrap multiple AWS accounts, or with a template to do that. So yeah, this would be something we have very important for CDK community. If you are gonna deploy cross account and even cross region, you definitely would need to know how to do that with CDK.
And Pahud, I want to jump in. So from a security perspective, when you initially started talking about this, you mentioned that single account, and it's very common. I've seen this where an AWS customer, look, you're new, you're starting up, you just want to move fast, you deploy everything into a single account. From a security perspective, imagine if you have PCI compliance, or you have customer data living in there, and you're deploying and testing things in the same account boundary that you're deploying production workloads. It is very challenging to, from an IAM policy management perspective, to isolate access between those various environments that you have in the same account. From a security perspective, obviously, when you have account isolation, you can control who can do what in what accounts, right? So in a dev account, we may be a little more permissive. We don't have customer data in there. I may just go in, I can break something. It's no problem. It's dev, right? It's a development account. I broke it. Oops, no big deal. But imagine in production, when everything's so closely coupled in the same account, I can make an oops in a production environment, and that's not great, right? So that's one benefit. And then just, it goes along with that blast radius. I think it's a term we commonly use here, but it's, if I break one thing, obviously we want to make sure that I don't break it across all my environments in that single account. So it just gives you that protection where you can, do those crazy damaging things that you want to go nuts on in your lower environments, but you can keep your production environments a little more isolated and stable in that way. And then you mentioned organizations and Control Tower. So if you haven't checked out Control Tower, definitely look into that. It just simplifies the organizational structure of creating these accounts. It helps you create like the central deployment accounts, logging accounts, audit accounts, all that good stuff. Because previous to this, Pahud, you probably remember this, we had the concept of landing zones. Remember that? And we had to build those on your own. It was very challenging. So, so anyway, we have a good question that came in. So you don't recommend using tag-based or prefix-based resource separation. I think this is actually a very good approach to isolating access to resources. This is more like attribute-based access controls or tag-based access controls. I think you should absolutely do that. But I do think from a production perspective, you should try to isolate at least production resources in their own account. Because again, not every single resource in AWS supports tag-based access controls. So it's a little more challenging to do that, but absolutely great mechanism. Was there anything you wanted to add to that, Pahud?
Yeah. So tag-based access control is great, but it could happen that just as you mentioned, that some resources actually do not support that, and it could happen that some resources just didn't apply those tags, and bad things could happen. So the greatest isolation is always account level isolation in AWS. You cannot break through accounts like that. So so we generally recommend customer to always use account level isolation when necessary.
And you can absolutely, like, I understand, with multiple accounts, it does introduce more complexity. So if you're a smaller, startup, or you don't have all the resources to build and, kind of monitor and look at all these accounts, you can absolutely couple your lower environments in, one or two accounts or one account, right? Like a dev and staging environment, maybe you couple those in the same account if you want to just limit the complexity of multi-account management. But definitely production, keep those isolated if you can.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think this was good. We kind of talked just foundational. Here's why you should think about cross account. Now, let's switch gears here, Pahud. Let's talk about the CDK and how the CDK kind of simplifies that cross account deployment management.
Yeah. So before we jump into the cross account, we need to know what's happening when we CDK Bootstrap. So you definitely know CDK Bootstrap if you are a CDK user, because CDK Bootstrap is the first thing first you have to do before deploy any CDK application. But what happens under the hood when you run CDK Bootstrap? We need to know talk a little bit about that before we can introduce because we can talk the cross account. So if we look at this diagram, that in a nutshell, that when you run CDK Bootstrap, there is something happened under the hood. First, we have some IAM roles will be created. For example, if we look at this diagram, 5 IAM role will be created: the deploy role, CFN exec role, lookup role, file publishing role, image publishing role, and we have a document talk a little bit about that. But obviously the deploy role is the role that run the CDK deploy for you. CFN is exec role is the role that runs the CloudFormation operations for you. Lookup role is to look up some context or environment, like for example, what is your default VPC ID? What is your VPC subnets information and your context variable or SSM parameter. The read-only lookup goes to the lookup role. File publishing role and image publishing role is for the assets. So in case you missed it, Adam has a episode in CDK Live talking about everything around the CDK assets. So if you publish the Lambda function or container image assets, so the file publishing role will upload the S3 file assets to the bucket, and the image publishing role will Docker push the container image to ECR repository for you. So 5 roles will be created for different purpose for you, and also we have the default staging bucket created, as well as the ECR repository for the image assets, and everything will be created with the CDK toolkit stack, which is created by when you run the CDK Bootstrap. So that is what's happening when you run CDK Bootstrap. So when we say cross-account deployment, it's essentially all about the role assuming. So what we are going to do today is that we are going to demo the cross-account deployment like this, from account A to account B. Okay, from account A to account B, right? Okay, so now we know what's going on when we run the CDK Bootstrap. So how to do that? If we have 2 accounts, account A and account B, how to correctly bootstrap both accounts? So let's scroll down a little bit. Okay, let's assume this is my account A, 903, and this is my account B, 230, right? So account A is the deploying account, and account B is the target account. So let's talk a little bit about the bootstrap. So for account A, if the account A is only deploying to account B and not deploying anything on itself, then we probably don't have to bootstrap account A. But you probably would still bootstrap account A because you probably would also deploy something in account A as well. So this is how you bootstrap the account A, like CDK bootstrap AWS account and region. That's all.
And Pahud, I think a common practice, and generally like larger organizations do this, like when you create that control tower, you create your multi-account structure, it's a good practice to have like a deploy account. So maybe your CI/CD pipeline lives in that deploy account. So you still want to bootstrap that account if you're going to create, assets through CDK via the CDK to that account, like your pipeline, which I know we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but the most important is your target account. In this case, account B, right? So very similar to account A that you bootstrap this account with the specific region, but you have to specify the trust and trust for lookup for account A. This means that, okay, I trust you to assume relevant roles on account B for read-only lookup or rewrite, for example, publishing assets or ECR images as well. So this is very important. You have to specify the trust and trust for lookup for the account A, and also specify the CloudFormation execution policies. In most cases, you probably would just specify administrator access, which means that when you deploy to account B, you are allowed to create literally everything in account B as an administrator. And of course, you can scope down the policies as well. So this is the general idea how to bootstrap account A and account B. And make sure that if you need cross-region deployment as well, make sure to bootstrap every region you are gonna deploy. For example, if you are gonna cross deployment from US East 1 to US West 2, make sure to bootstrap that region as well, because a separate IAM roles will be created for that region, only for that region, and those roles are required. So make sure to bootstrap for each region for the account.
And Pahud, how often are you bootstrapping your accounts and regions?
We have seen some customer always bootstrap before every single deployment, which is definitely not necessary. So only bootstrap for the first time, and remember, always use the latest CDK v2 version for your CDK bootstrap. Yeah, and so after you bootstrap the account B, you can go to the IAM console to double check the trust policies from the created IAM role. For example, in this case, if you look at the deployment the CDK deploy role, which is created by the CDK bootstrap, look at the trust policy, you will see the two statements here. So in this case, the trust policy would allow current account as both account A and account B to assume to this role. So this is very important, especially you have to make sure that account A is in the trust policy. Otherwise, account B would not be able to assume to this role. So double check your trust policy. Make sure the trust policy is correctly created. Yeah, and so the role, the cross account IAM role, assuming is all about the source account would need the STS assume role IAM policy, and the target account would allow the source account to do that in the trust policy. So double check both sides, source account and the target account. Make sure the policies are configured Okay, so now if we configure, if we successfully bootstrap the both account, then we can jump into the real use cases. So today I'm gonna have some scenarios for the cross account deployment in CDK. Yeah, so let's look at the first scenario. Okay, so the first scenario is pretty straightforward. We are not gonna create any fancy CDK application today. No, it's not what we are not doing that. So for today, we just create a very simple SQSQ. That's all. So this is what we are gonna do for the stack, and the most important is that we can simply specify the account B ID here, okay, rather than current account. So that will be the very simplest cross account deployment. Just specify the target account B here, and then you just run CK deploy from the account A, right? So what's happening behind the scene is that your current IAM identity that runs the CDK deployment will be assuming to multiple IAM roles from account B to, for example, to look up, to upload assets, to execute the CloudFormation operations as well. But if you look at this CDK application, we are not creating any Lambda function or custom resource or any Docker image, container image. So there will not be any assets uploading happening. So yeah, so it will be super simple cross-account deployment. Okay, so let me do it.
And something that if someone's new to the CDK watching this video, that may be confusing is when you bootstrap, those roles that are being created are for the CDK CLI when it deploys, and then when CloudFormation deploys, it assumes those certain roles, or that specific role. But this is not the access that your resources that you're deploying have. So if you deploy a Lambda function, it doesn't have that admin access. That admin access is just scoped to the CDK and CloudFormation when they deploy, to make sure that they're able to deploy all the resources, accordingly.
So I just deployed the very first sample here. So if you look at the STS get caller identity, my current identity is account A 903, but I can deploy to account B here. If you look at it, the stack here is 230 here, and successfully deployed. And if we look at the CloudFormation console, okay, it's deployed here, right? So it's pretty simple. If you correctly configure the trust policy, that just happens like that. Okay.
So that's pretty cool, Pahud. Like, you didn't have to run, AWS STS assume role. You didn't have to figure all this logic out on your own. Once you bootstrap and you connect account A to account B, the CDK CLI handles all of that role assumption behind the scenes, saving you a lot of the grief and having to do that on your own.
Yeah. So this is the first example that shows how it works. But you definitely would not deploy your production workload like this. So that is where the CI/CD comes in. In CDK, we have different options for CI/CD pipelines. Like in AWS, we have AWS code pipelines, and in CDK, we have another high-level construct, CDK pipelines, that abstracts away a lot of complexity to allow you to configure your CDK deployment with the CDK pipeline. And what's the most important of all is that CDK pipelines allows you to host both your source code CDK application as well as your pipeline definition in a single repository. So as long as you commit or update any, for example, your CDK application or update your pipeline definition in this Git repository and get approved and merged, your CDK pipeline will be triggered for self-update and redeploy. So that is very great and handy for developers to just manage both the pipeline and your application in a single Git repository.
Yeah, and I talked about this. I got to find my link to my blog. I just wrote a blog recently where I kind of talked about all how the CDK really helps you from end to end, from writing your application code to your infrastructure code, all the way to your pipelines to DevSecOps. Like it really end to end can handle your entire application and architecture lifecycle. And with CDK pipelines, it's just, again, another way to couple all of these kind of, again, I keep saying complex, but all of these various things that you have to figure out outside of your infrastructure as code normally, you can bundle all of that into your CDK code. So it'll build the pipeline for you, self-mutate the pipeline, and then, of course, deploy your applications and infrastructure, and it's all coupled in the one place. So anyway, it's really cool. And
it's really cool. And we definitely have a lot of different options and some third party from partners as well. But CDK pipeline has been one of our favorite, solution for the daily CDK deployment. Yeah. So this sample, if you look at this sample, I have a sample here, pipeline TypeScript here. So this is my definition for a CDK pipeline. So if you look at this sample, I have defined both accounts. So account A is the pipeline account for current account with current account ID and current region. So this is the pipeline account for the deploy pipeline. And the account B is the target account. So when we say cross account, I mean the source account is the pipeline account, the account which pipeline is running. And the target account is usually the production account. It could be in the same region with the source account or in different region. Doesn't matter, but they have to be account level isolated like this. So in CDK application, we can define our account, different account here, account A and account B. And this is, for example, our application stack. In my case, I just created a SQSQ, no fancy, right? And I can define my pipeline stack like this. So if we look at this pipeline stack, okay, so it essentially connect to a GitHub repository to check out the GitHub as a source input, and then run a couple of commands to build like npm CI or yarn build, whatever you name it, right? So in my case, I just run yarn install from the log file to install everything required npm modules, followed by CDK things to generate the cloud assembly in the CDK out directory. And so that's all. So this is my pipeline definition here.
Hey, Pahud, really quick. So there was a question from Carlos. So AWS, the question is, does AWS have a native feature for handling pipelines, or are you saying create code pipeline using the CDK? Do you want to touch on that?
No. So I want to explain a little bit. So CDK pipeline is actually a high level construct, and it comes with the AWS code pipeline as its default pipeline. So yes, absolutely, you can just create AWS code pipeline on your own, no problem. It works great. But CDK pipeline is a high-level pipeline that provision the code pipeline for you. And also, it is also possible to support other different pipeline as its provider as well. So that is the idea of the CDK pipeline to simplify, the pipeline management for you.
Yeah, it's basically, it's just a construct. It's a higher level construct. All the opinions built in. It uses code pipeline behind the scenes, but the idea is you don't have to define all that on your own.
Yeah.
CDK Pipelines does all that good stuff on your behalf.
Yeah.
But you could, of course, use, like if you want to use GitHub Actions or use Jenkins, you can absolutely use those tools to deploy. You just build that outside of the CDK, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So if we look at this sample, the pipeline stack is actually running in account A here. So this is the pipeline stack, CDK pipeline stack. So on pipeline stack deployment, if you go to the AWS Code Pipeline console, you will see there's a pipeline provisioned in account A. So that is for the pipeline account. But the target account running the application would be on account B, which is defined here, right? And both account definition is defined here, right? So now, for the first time, for the first deployment, so what we are doing now is to just deploy the pipeline. Okay, so let me scroll down a little bit. Okay. So this is small tips for CDK. Okay, so we know CDK by default CDK has a default application entry point defined in the CDK JSON here. Like for example, here the default entry point is source main TypeScript, right? But we can dynamically switch the entry point application by passing the -a like this. So in this case, I'm switching my application entry point from main TypeScript to this file. Okay. So yeah, so I'm gonna deploy.
Because the idea here is, so when you use the CDK pipelines construct, it creates two CDK stacks, right? There's two apps.
Yeah.
The main app, but there's the pipeline stack, which is what manages that code pipeline with the CodeBuild and the code deploy, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's the actual application stack that gets deployed from that pipeline. And it's kind of confusing, but those are the two things that get built as a part of this.
Yeah, I have already deployed that, and I'm not gonna deploy this again. But so let's go to the pipeline console. So if we deploy, let me check the pipeline. Okay, so when you deploy your CDK pipeline, you go to the code pipeline console. You will see this is the pipeline. You have the source stage, build stage, which run the CDK things to generate the cloud assembly for you. And you have the self-mutation stage, which will update the pipeline if necessary. And the deployment stage is actually leveraging the CloudFormation deployment action to deploy the generated cloud assembly for you, which is created on from the sync stage, right? So it's no fancy, just deploy with CloudFormation. And CDK here is just generate the cloud assembly, including the code assets and including the CloudFormation template for you. So that's it. The pipeline would deploy for this for you, but under the hood, it's actually a AWS code pipeline happening under the hood. So let's look at the target account.
And Pahud, could you really quickly give just a couple examples of where the self-mutation would take place? Like what would trigger a self-mutate on the pipeline?
So if we look at the Git repository, So as I mentioned that the benefits, one of the benefits of the CDK pipeline is that it allows you to manage both the pipeline definition and your source code in a single repository, and the pipeline will be only triggered on the Git on the webhook from the Git, which could be like a PR merge, or you push something into the repository, triggering the webhook. So if we look at the pipeline example here, okay, so this is my my repository for the pipeline. You'll see that both the definition, the pipeline definition, and the application. The application is actually here. Where, yeah, is both defined in a single file. So but if you modify any pipeline definition here, for example, I want to modify how to build my application, or for example, I want to run the CI test before deployment, or I want to modify anything here. When you modify your definition here and commit into this repository, this will trigger the pipeline self-update. So in this case, your CodeBuild pipeline will update its CodeBuild definition, because you have modified your definition in your CDK code, and that will trigger the self-mutation to update itself. So you don't have to redeploy the pipeline. No, you just modify your code in a single repository.
Yeah, or if you wanted to add another account to deploy to,
yeah,
you do that. That's a self mutation. So
anyway,
perfect.
You can also add different stage or even different wave for different purpose or different multiple destinations as well.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank
okay.
you.
So if we look at the target account, it actually deployed by the CDK pipeline. Let me sign in the target account. Okay, so this is the target account 230, okay, so this stack is actually deployed by the CDK pipeline here. Okay, so this is cross account deployment, but I'm not running the CDK deploy by myself. It's CDK pipeline that trigger code pipeline to run the CDK synth to synthesize the cloud assembly, followed by CloudFormation deploy action that run the real deployment for you. So that's what's happening. Yeah, and it's really straightforward. So for example, if you are gonna deploy to different region, for example, US West 2, you just modify here. So you probably would have another pull request, but for demo, I just update like this, but you definitely would not do that. Okay, so I'm gonna do this. Deploy to US West 2 instead. Okay, so you probably will create a pull request with some pull request review approval, followed by merge by the bot or GitHub Actions. So as soon as your code is being merged, then your pipeline will be triggered. See here. And now it will deploy for you to another region. And of course, it will update itself the relevant definition in the CodeBuild or in the code pipeline. Yeah. So that's what's happening with code pipeline. Very straightforward.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah,
that's very cool. So by triggering that in the next few minutes, we should see in US West 2 now that queue was deployed and through the pipeline.
It would take just a few minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is how it works.
Very cool. And if folks want to see a show, like a live stream on CDK pipeline where we dive, really deep into the various aspects of how CDK pipelines work, let us know. Post a comment. We're glad to do that down the road here as well.
Yeah. And by the way, yeah, we have seen customers asking for some very special use cases with CDK pipeline. For example, they would like to do cross account in the cross region, but they would like to leverage existing S3 bucket with existing KMS keys, for example. And also, they probably would like to reuse some IAM roles across multiple CDK pipeline, which is technically possible, but it's not very easy to configure in the CDK pipeline construct properties. So yeah, so if you are interested to know how to do that, we actually have some GitHub issues to discuss such use cases, and I will have some links under the video comments below for your reference. So if you are really interested to know how to reuse IAM roles and buckets or keys, okay, let us know. We have some discussion about that.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, I think I think we don't have to wait the pipeline. Yeah, it will eventually deploy to US West 2. But the one of the advantage of CDK pipeline is it allows you to define different target, for example, in parallel or different wave. For example, your first wave would always go to some testing account. As soon as your testing account pass some test, then deploy to different wave, to different account or different region as well. And CDK pipeline allows you to define such very complicated pipeline completely in CDK. You don't have to touch any console or CloudFormation definition. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. So Pahud, do we want to talk about anything else, or
Sure.
what do you think?
Yeah. So we talk about first scenario using the manual deployment, which is super easy. And we talk about CDK pipeline with a very simple use case, either in the same region or in different region. So that is scenario 2 and scenario 3. And we have also seen some customers, okay, they tend to use CodeBuild only, which is very interesting because CodeBuild literally allow you to do anything, including the CDK deployment. So in the next scenario, I'm gonna have a demo with some real code sample. So if you just would like to leverage CodeBuild to deploy cross account and cross region, what you can do. Okay, so now let's look at my sample here for CodeBuild. Okay, so for CodeBuild, we create our CodeBuild project very, very straightforward like this. Okay, so we define our environment using the latest Linux environment build image like this. And we have a build spec, which could be a static YAML file in our local repository. We will talk a little bit about it later. And you probably would check out your source from a private or public GitHub repository like this. So you define your GitHub source repository. So let's look at the build spec YAML. So in your build spec YAML, there's no fancy. Okay, all you need to do is that on the install phase, on source checkout from your Git repository, you definitely need to, for example, npm install or yarn install your npm packages. So if you use yarn, you yarn install with frozen lock to exactly install everything defined in your log file. That's all, without any upgrade, right? That's all. And because we are doing cross account, so what is happening here is that in the build phase, CodeBuild is actually running as a project role, a specific role in the account A, doing the running the commands for you. But if you run the CDK deploy here, CDK under the hood will look up, okay, what is your current account ID? CDK will check the SS key and figure out what is the current account ID. And the account ID would be account A in this case. So we will need a little trick to pass a specific account ID here to the target CDK application to allow that application pass in this account ID. So if we look at our Git repository here, Pahud CDK dummy app. Okay, let's check this dummy app. Okay, so this is the source repository that CodeBuild would check out and deploy. And if we look at the CDK application here, okay, how do we determine the stack account? We have a small tips here. First, check if the target account environment variable exists. If yes, then that will be our stack account. Otherwise, the default current account will be used. So that is where we switch our different account. So we can pass the target account here as environment variable to CDK deploy along all the way to the application. Then the CDK application will just use this account ID as the stack account, and that's all. Then your CodeBuild running on stack A will be able to deploy to account B. So what's happening behind the scene is that the CodeBuild project role will be assuming to multiple IAM roles we mentioned early to do that. So make sure in your CDK application, your project role would have relevant IAM policy statement like this. This will allow your project IAM role to assume to those 5 IAM roles on account B for deployment, for CloudFormation execution, context lookup, access publishing, everything, and that's all. So if you really like to leverage CodeBuild to do everything for you, that is the very important trick to for that. So that is my last scenario for CodeBuild. For it could be cross account and cross region deployment, and you can literally do everything in your build spec YAML. That's all.
That's fantastic. So we talked about just local deployments, just hard coding that cross account, the account number and region, which generally you're probably not doing if you're deploying real world workloads. But then we made it a little more dynamic. So we used like environment variables to define our accounts, but also we use CDK pipelines where you define your accounts that you want to deploy to, add those to different stages or waves in the pipeline, and then the pipeline will assume the proper roles and deploy all of that on your behalf. And then for those who prefer to use something like CodeBuild, we walk through the various scenarios or how to basically execute via CodeBuild there. That's pretty awesome, Pahud. Those are a lot of good use cases.
So wrapping up. So I think we definitely we've seen some customers using some like GitHub Actions, Jenkins as well. So if you are interested to know how to do that, like for example, CodeCatis CI/CD workflow, which I love it a lot, let us know. Leave your comments below in the video. Let us know so we can have more demo for you. But so we have seen some customers doing troubleshooting, having troubleshooting issues around the cross account deployments. Some advice here that always use CDK v2 latest version whenever possible. Do not use CDK v1 anymore, which is deprecated, and they have different behavior in terms of bootstrapping. So make sure you use CDK v2 latest version, and make sure to pass the trust and trust lookup parameters when you bootstrap the target account, because the trust policies will be applied, will be generated from the CDK bootstrap. Yeah, and always double check the IAM console. Make sure relevant trust policies are attached to those roles. Right. Yeah, and yeah, just as I mentioned, we have seen some customers using the native Marina AWS code pipelines as well, or they are reusing the existing KMS keys bucket or IAM roles. We have some issues here with some real working samples here. So yeah, make sure to check it out if you have fall into similar usage cases, or feel free to reach out to us on CDK Dev Slack or on Twitter. Let us know so we can help.
Perfect. So Pahud, there was one question, the last question before we wrap up here. So what are some other use cases for cross-account deployments instead of having a deployment account?
Yeah, it's rather than having a deployment account,
I would say probably like this, like GitHub Actions, really wherever you're deploying. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a deployment account, but wherever your pipeline lives,
yeah,
that pipeline is probably going to deploy to multiple accounts. Yeah. The CDK CLI and the CDK Bootstrap, that's going to help you with those cross-account deployments in that single pipeline. When you build once and deploy everywhere. So generally that's going to follow in your pipeline too. So you'll have your dev, stage, prod. Those are going to probably be in different accounts. So regardless of where your pipeline is, I think the cross-account deployments is going to be relevant there, because you're going to assume roles to deploy to those accounts, and that's going to be important.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, thank you everybody for being here today and for watching the video. Again, as Pahud said, leave comments if you have any questions. We will, in the description, we're going to have some links to various places to help you get started, as well as, Pahud mentioned some various places to kind of look for some of these, issues that we've seen that are common across use cases. So we'll be sure to post those in here. And yeah, thank you, Carlos. Thank you for all your comments during the show. And then we will catch you all next time. And again, you're going to see Pahud a lot more, because Pahud has all the awesome content. So we're going to bring him in as much as we can, because his brain, we need to just tap into that to pull those resources in. So Pahud, thank you so much for joining. Thank you. We'll see you all soon.
Yeah, see you.